Hello and welcome back to the NastyMetalProductions channel here at YouTube, and welcome to the very first video of the year 2023. It is here for a currently listing video, which is, again, more new arrival stuff, just like the last one was. I figured to kind of start the brand new year off a little bit on the easy side, so I think it just makes sense just showing off more new arrivals. And again, but there's at least some stuff in here that I've had previously in the collection already that I've probably showed off on the channel and like collection updates and stuff. But again, it's pretty much just a mishmash of brand new arrivals and just some already previously stuff that's been in the collection. Alright, however, the first thing I'm going to show off, I just showed off in the last video, which again, even though it still is a new arrival, it's just, I've already talked about this one anyways. However, there's a couple of things I failed to mention, but it is the Kill Again Records pressing of Cry Out for Metal from Vampyr. Again, I've already talked about how I don't really care for the remastering or whatever, or the sound quality on this reissue. But again, I'll still listen to it, and I've still been kind of listening to it. Again, at the minute when I turn on the bass boost on my CD player, it softens up the music a little bit. It makes it more tolerable because it's just so trebly. So, but I'm not going to really talk too much about that. What I'm going to talk about is the thing that I failed to mention, is that besides the fact that there's at least a extra track called Priest, there's at least 11 extra tracks on this. Okay, so since Stormspell Records had originally reissued this back in 2008, they also included video tracks, or they tacked on video tracks on the actual disc. So if you were to put the disc into the computer, you were able to to access the videos and stuff and actually watch them, which were TV session recordings that I think were only aired on German TV back in April of 1986. So it was kind of a live concert, but it was basically the whole band playing Cry Out for Metal in its entirety. So for this reissue from Kill Again Records, which is actually more of a repress from the 2014 Under Fire Records reissue, which were the first ones to kind of make it sound like shit, to put it that way. They included the whole live TV, recorded performance, whatever, and instead turned them into audio tracks. So they basically filled up an entire disc full of this stuff. So besides a unreleased song, they tacked on the live performances as audio. So in a way, it's kind of neat to have this copy just for the fact that you get them all in audio form instead of just video form. If anything, I'll probably be on the lookout anyways for at least a nice, decently priced copy of the original Stormspell Records reissue from 2008, which again sounds way better than this one, at least when it comes to the album. But again, it'll be also great to even have the actual video performance, at least in video format instead of audio. So there you go. Just wanted to kind of bring that up since I failed to mention that, all of that information in my last current listening to new arrivals video. Where to put that? I'll put that there. Okay, so this one is a brand new arrival. This one arrived in my mailbox, or at least here to the house, last week, just before New Year's Eve and everything. But I can't believe I didn't get this when it first came out. But what I'm going to show here is Trapezact with From Dusk Till Dawn. This was an album that was originally recorded in 1990, but didn't get released until 2012 when High Roller Records again put this out. By the time, which was that year of 2012, I was beginning to get into adding pretty much High Roller Records into my collection. That's why I was starting off with like Demon Pact, the Scarab, and I think there was maybe a couple of two other ones in there. I think like the 2 Urchin albums and everything. So I was beginning to really kind of start up my High Roller Records CD collection and everything, and just getting stuff from that label. But for some reason, I passed on this. Again, From Dusk Till Dawn from Trapezoid. And it wasn't until this year I then realized this has a connection to a band that I ended up adding to my High Roller Records collection, I guess, you know, starting off. And that would have been Scarab with Rolling Like Thunder. You know, that is my only thing that I have from Scarab, because that's basically everything that that band ever recorded. That also includes the Poltergeist 7-inch. Well, with Scarab, when they broke up in, like, what was it, 86 or something like that, they broke up, it might have been 87. Singer Paul Britton left the band and pretty much joined Trapezoid here and recorded this album, which would be the only album that was recorded under the Trapezoid name. And I didn't find that out until this year, and so since this album has been out of print on High Roller Records website, thankfully there were some people on eBay that were selling this for a very nice price, and I found a really good price on that was being sold on, was it the original Heavy Metal Mausoleum distro web store, whatever, that's on eBay. He was selling this for a sealed copy for $9.59, and I had to grab it. Sure, there was a little bit of shipping and everything, but it was still very, very good price. This is such a good album. It's definitely in the post new wave of British heavy metal sound. Damn, the glare is awful right here. Fuck, I gotta do something about this. Let me see this now. This is a little better. Man, the glaring's horrible. Son of a bitch. That's why sometimes I'm like opening up the curtains and everything. It just really makes everything really bad. But there you go. Just had to take it out. So, what I was getting on back to here is that it's definitely post-new wave or British heavy metal, but this is great post-new wave or British heavy metal. If you're fans of, especially Peace of Mind, Power Slave era Iron Maiden, Angel Witch, I know that doesn't really completely count as new wave of British heavy metal to some, you know, those 2 Bruce Dickinson era Iron Maiden albums, but for some reason this sound gives off vibes of Peace of Mind and Power Slave. But I can hear a little bit of Angel Witch in here. I can hear goddamn, there's some other band too that's kind of escaping my mind. But even as far as making comparisons to more newer bands like Haunt, I can hear a little bit of Haunt in this too, and the new wave for traditional heavy metal, all of that. If you're fans of that, if you can find a decently priced copy of this on record, because I know the old vinyl copies are all out of print. You know what? High Roller Records should probably really look into repressing this, because this is a very good album, and I think this definitely should be in almost everyone's collection, because this is so good, so good. But again, if you can find yourselves a decently priced copy of this album from Trapezoid, whether it be on CD or record, grab it. This is very good, at least until High Roller decides to go back into their discography of old stuff and looks into possibly doing a repressing of this album, because this is such a good album. But yeah, there you go. From Dusk Till Dawn from Trapezoid. Just great post new wave of British heavy metal. Just great stuff. And to tell you the truth, I actually prefer this to Scarab. Because again, like I've stated, I've got the Rolling Like Thunder compilation that High Roller had put out. Don't have it with me right now, but I think this is better than Scarab. Even though, again, I like that stuff just as much, you know, it's good. But this is fucking better. Alright, speaking of stuff that's also very good, this is the last of the Stormspell Records haul that I had received 2 weeks ago. that I purchased again off of their distro. Right here, it is Escape the Mind. Yeah, or Escape from Mind, it's titled, from Shaw. One of the more well-known thrash metal bands to come out of Russia. I've always been kind of very curious about getting into Shaw since they were once on the Autumn H label, which had Protector and Accuser, I believe, too, were all on the Autumn H label, but Shaw were on that label, too. I think for their first 2 albums, I believe, or it was just their first album. But this, I believe, is their 4th and last album before they had split up. I know they're back together again, but this is their 4th album. Actually, this was recorded in 1993 at Frank Zappa's studio in Russia, which is pretty wild to think about, you know. It's like, wait, they were able to record at that studio, I mean a metal band at his studio. Because I know he had did plenty of stuff in Russia when I think the political climate or whatever, I think, was changing. And it was a pretty big deal for Russia, you know, for like Frank Zappa and all of that. But this was recorded at that studio, and this would become the last thing they would ever put out. And it was only released on cassette only. But back in 2016 or something like that, 2016, one of those years, Stormspell Records decided to do a official reissue of this album, had it remastered, and this, of course, is a 2020 repress of it because they included the lenticular 3D cover, which, again, it's you can kind of see what it does there. It's showing up decently on camera, though. Lenticular covers don't always show up great on camera. But the thing is about this addition to my collection is that I actually got this for free off the Stormspell Records Web Distro. So what I did was, with that haul, if you were to spend at least $75 or more, you were allowed to choose a free CD. And though that was limited, though, to at least Stormspell Records releases, so your free CD had to at least be a Stormspell Records release. Not just anything that was from other labels that he had added onto his distro, you know, from like High Roll or anything. No, it had to be a Stormspell Records only release. But it needed to be of the price of $11.99 or less. And this baby right here was priced at $11.99. So I basically chose this as my free CD, and that's what I got here. So this was my free CD from, again, spending as much as I did on the Stormspell Records website. And man, this is a very good thrash metal album, though. This is actually very good. It's very much in the Bay Area style. I know that they were on Autumn H, which I guess was a German label, but they don't sound like your typical German thrash metal band. It's way more in the Bay Area style, like Testament, a little bit of Metallica I can hear in there, especially old school Metallica, Exodus, that sort of sound, or Death Angel. It's in that sort of sound, and it's very solid. Vocal-wise, I might get a little bit of corner, a little bit, but again, it's not super technical. It's just very much in that sort of Bay Area thrash metal style. Very cool, though. I really dig it. So, again, I don't know how many copies there are left of the ones with the lenticular 3D cover, but it is still very cool to have, and I'm very glad that this was a free CD for me. But again, I wanted to choose it anyways because I wanted to check out some Shaw, so there you go. Escape from Mind from Shaw. Okay, this one I was so looking forward to getting because I had purchased this off of, again, along the same time I had purchased the Trapezoid. Again, this all came from, again, I'm going off there, but this right here and what the next one I'm going to show were all purchased from the original Heavy Metal Mausoleum page, whatever, on eBay. And I wanted to at least upgrade a copy of this sound. I wanted to upgrade from my original No Remorse Records release because I didn't care for the sound quality a little bit on my No Remorse Records copy or reissue of this album. So when I saw that this was getting reissued on this label, I was like, I gotta now get this. I wanted to see if this would be a better upgrade. But this kind of was a little bit of a disappointment to me. I was very underwhelmed by this. But it is the recent reissue of Metal Lightning Attack from Mad Butcher. Again, very obscure German metal band that have finally getting some of their albums already been, getting reissued. By the time when No Remorse originally did the CD reissue of this album, it was a unofficial reissue to an extent, because they didn't really contact Harry Elbrick, whatever his name is, I know he goes by the name Metal Harry on this album, but he didn't contact any of the members of Mad Butcher on reissuing that album back in 2011 or something when it came out on No Remorse Records. But since I was discovering Mad Butcher for the very first time, it was just like, oh shit, it's been reissued on CD, so I had to get it. And at the time, it satisfied me. But over years, I know it's like, it's definitely not a very good or great reissue, because again, No Remorse Records were just in their infancy. So since then they've done much better jobs. I mean, for example, look at the reissues for the first two Quiet Riot albums. Those are fantastic reissues. But man, when they reissued this album right here back in 2011, they were just so much in their infancy that it was almost at times kind of a glorified bootleg label, to in a way. But they probably only did that as a way to kind of succumb money and everything too, so they actually can put some thought into some of the reissues. So I just wanted to, at some point, think about upgrading to a better reissue, whatever. And when this was announced, I'm like, this might be the upgrade that I'm looking for. Because, I mean, this one's packed with plenty of bonus tracks. I mean, look at the layout. This was actually released through Awakening Records out of China. I mean, look at all of this. It comes with the OB strip and the disc. I mean, the whole layout, the cover, all of this. It's a really nice looking reissue. Way better looking than the one that No Remorse originally put out in 2011. It all looks great. It looks professional. And it uses, though, just in name, Patrick W. Engel's remastering. Because again, he had remastered this album originally for Dying Victims Productions for their Relics from the Crypts sub-label, because they were doing a reissue of this on vinyl. And he had remastered it. Some of his remastered songs, whatever, from this album were used as bonus tracks on the Stormspell Records reissues for, Metal Lightning Attack and the unreleased album For Adults Only. So they only used selective songs from his remasters of this album, and they sounded great. And I'm like, damn, these sound really good. And so when I again found out that Awakening Records was reissuing this album with his remastered versions, I definitely needed to go out and at least try and get a copy of the Awakening Records reissue. It's like, I needed to get this, I didn't know that they were going to fuck it up as much as they did, because not only did they use his remastering, but they also did it in a way that is almost... It's fucking bizarre the way that they took his remasters. It's like they recorded with equipment that wasn't even grounded well. I mean, because you can hear buzzing and stuff. That's usually from equipment that's got ground. And this numbnuts, whoever that went and remastered this or took this, his audio, Patrick W. Engel's audio, he forgot the ground, the equipment, and you can just hear the buzzing, and it just sounds like that they also took the audio straight just from the Bandcamp page. That means instead of just... Obviously, they got a lot of money anyways from all of their releases to begin with. So I don't know why that they didn't take time to actually buy the download whatever the FLACs off, you know, from Dying Vic's Productions Bandcamp page, or could have just asked Patrick for at least a folder or something via email of his raw FLAC files, you know, of his remastering that they can use. But instead, they did it in such a bizarre, weird, idiotic way, and they even maximized the volume so loud to where it almost distorts the entire release. So in a way, it's almost at times kind of unbearable to listen to. I mean, it's more unbearable when you're listening to this on your computer speakers, because of, yeah, that's where you really notice it. Because me, when I'm listening to this on my headphones, yes, it can be noticeable, but it's at least a little decent. But man, on your computer, you can just hear what they did, and it's so bad. And I am so disappointed in what they did. And I almost feel bad for Patrick W. Engel that he gets his name tacked onto this. I feel bad, and I don't know if he even has a Twitter or a Facebook page for him to actually let out his grievances, because I think, for all I know, in his mind, he's probably wishing that he'd tell people to avoid this, but because of, he probably would feel bad for the members of Mad Butcher, who are all looking to put in a way to make some sort of money. I understand that. So he doesn't want to probably take away any sort of money, at least from the band members, because they're all trying to make a little bit of something. But this is a way more to be desired, and I'm just a little bit disappointed with this. Great packaging, great looking release. You would think they would have put some little bit of thought into preserving the audio on this disc, you know, the mastering. They would have at least put some thought into something that they're going to be selling, but they didn't. They put more thought into the layout of this reissue instead of the music itself, and I think that's a shame, because this really disappointed me. So I'm just being honest about my thoughts here, and again, just one of probably the biggest disappointments already of 2022. Alright, so I showed those. Alright, next up, something I bought off of Amazon. They only had one copy left in stock, and this was sitting on my wish list for years. But it is the 2014 PileDriver Records reissue of this very obscure German metal album from Thunder. Not to be confused with any of the other bands that were called Thunder. Again, it's titled All I Want, released, I think, very privately, or very independently, back in 1984. This is an obscure German metal album. I used to have this downloaded, but obviously the vinyl rip was not very good sound to begin with. This at least is better sounding. Again, the reason why I got this so quickly off of Amazon is because of I went on to Discogs and nobody was selling a copy, and then I went on the eBay and I noticed that one person was selling this for 71 bucks out of Germany, and Amazon only had one copy left, and they were selling it at like, what, 12 bucks, so it came out to 20 because of the overpriced shipping and everything. And this is here in the United States, all the way here in the United States. What, $5.99, and then of course to tap out with sales tax, so it just got up to freaking 20 bucks, but it was still cheaper than what I was seeing people sell this for on eBay. So they only had one copy left, so I was able to grab it, and now they don't have any copies left. They're saying, oh, temporarily out of stock. Well, it's going to be forever out of stock until they do a repress. But I grabbed it. It's got some bonus tracks on here, but I'm definitely at least happy to obtain a very obscure, underground, cult, German heavy metal album. So I'm always trying to add a lot of old school, very obscure 80s German metal albums into my collection. So there you go. All I Want from Thunder. I'm going to forever do more in-depth talk about this album and their sound in a future video. Okay, next up, This is something I bought off, actually not something I bought off online. I actually bought this at Rasputin, or now Mad Monk, just a couple days ago. Actually been on New Year's Eve, but they have been having this in their store for plenty of months now since it was reissued. But it is the recent Shadow Kingdom Records reissue of the classic debut from Bulldozer, The Day of Wrath. Classic Italian, very black, almost very dark sort of speed thrash metal band. This is their debut, again, originally released in 1985 via Roadrunner Records or Road Racer, I think in the US. But very good album. You know, for years I've always seen people say that Bulldozer or tagged them as like a Motorhead clone, whatever. You know, it's been years since I had listened to anything off of this album, because I only think her listening to this album on YouTube now was almost 10 years ago or so, and it's just been very long. But re-listening to this album years later, at this point, I think some of the Motorhead comparisons, I think, are way too overblown. I think some people are almost kind of wrong, because this is not anywhere near the Motorhead sound to begin. This is way more in the Venom sound. This is almost early Venom worship, because musically this is so much in that sort of black metal. I mean, the Venom album, Welcome to Hell, and a little bit of At War with Satan, that sort of sound, and it's just very much in that little bit, that very dark new wave or British heavy metal influence, but it's just so much in that Venom vein. So this is pretty much can be seen as precursors to black metal, possibly even at times maybe death metal to an extent, but it's just so raw, so dirty, so filthy sounding in a way, because it's just so, again, the ways that I can describe The Day of Wrath is, I don't think would almost do the album justice. It's just a freaking raw sounding album produced by Algie Ward. Originally they wanted the sound to be produced by King Diamond, but he said that the album or the music sounded way too punk for his liking, and I can see that. It's definitely been on the almost unconventional side, because it's more again in that sort of Venom, Tank, Warfare sort of influence, but it's just so raw sounding, and I love it. I love it for all of that. Actually, I think Bulldozer here made a better Venom album in 1985 than Venom did. And I know that's a reference to Possessed, which I don't think was a great album anyways from Venom, but to me this is a much better Venom album than Possessed was. That's what I'm going to say there. Great album anyways from Bulldozer. I will definitely be adding way more Bulldozer albums into my collection as this year goes on. Alright, and the last one on the show here, since obviously, since I was in the mood of listening to more recent reissues from Shadow Kingdom, I also pulled out my copy of Metal Inquisition from PileDriver. Again, this is the most recent reissue from Shadow Kingdom Records from this year. I showed it off in a live stream, which was a complete disaster of a live stream to begin with. But I did get great album. Also, rest in peace to Gord Gurchin. Again, he had passed away back in September. Just a month after, or 2 months after him obviously going on about how great this reissue was, because he helped out on remastering this album, and it's just great. So, great album anyways from PileDriver, just classic Canadian speed thrash metal. So there you go. There it is, folks. If you have any sort of comments on any of these releases, again, you can leave them in the comment section below. So with that, I will here and there be back with more currently listening to new arrivals and everything kind of videos as this month goes on, even to the next month. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed, and I hope all of you had a great New Year's Eve, and it's a great time, a great New Year's and everything. So I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.